What's up, everybody? I'm Steve. Welcome back to the Film Fan Reviews, and today we're going to talk about. What?
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Film Fan Reviews. I'm Steve, and this is your first time here, then. Alright, guys, well, today's going to be a bit different. Not a new movie, it's actually a movie I've seen before, but I wanted to revisit it. It's been talked about a lot in pop culture lately. We're getting a new Spider-Man movie coming up, so I wanted to go back and revisit the 2002 Sam Raimi Spider-Man and kind of see how it holds up and see if I still love it as much as I do, because right now it's definitely top 5 and maybe even like top 3 of my favorite Spider-Man movies, so I remember it fondly and hopefully it holds up. So before we get into that, just one more thing. Can't do a Spider-Man review. I wish that would have worked out better without my Spider-Man blanket. Except it's my brother's, but I'm going to use it anyway, because it's a prop. Ah, yes, this is much better, but anyway, back to the movie. The first time I watched it was on VHS. If you don't know what a VHS tape is, here it is. I really hope you do. I'm pretty sure they're coming back in a weird nostalgic way like everything does, but this is how I watched it. Me and my brothers watched it on repeat multiple times for years before we ever got the second movie on DVD. Went back and watched it on VHS all the time because we loved this movie. It was like one of the first superhero movies I watched other than the first original X-Men movie, so I loved it a lot. I read some of the comics as a kid, definitely read them more as I grew up, but I've loved Spider-Man since I was a little kid. I own the mask, as you saw before. We own lots of comics, we have blankets, I have shirts. Just kind of a Spider-Man freak, so when I think about this movie, I think about my childhood and just the love for Spider-Man, so hopefully these nostalgia goggles hold up, and let's just get into the movie. So the opening credits are on these spider webs, which I found to be really cool. I really love when older movies kind of played around with their opening credits and made them more fun, not just kind of have them pop up every now and then during the opening scenes. It's kind of boring to me. I like to see some more creativity put in, and the spiderwebs obviously are a bit cheesy at times, but with that cool Danny Elfman score behind it, I think it's really fun. And if you don't know who Danny Elfman is, I encourage you to check out more of his scores. He did the original 1989 Batman. He did The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is some of my favorite music in any movie whatsoever. And yeah, he's just an amazing composer. So this movie has that music. Opening credits are awesome. And it just really gets you in the mood for Spider-Man, you know? Just fun times to be had. And right before we jump into the movie, we see the credit directed by Sam Raimi. And if you haven't watched any of Sam Raimi's older movies, I highly encourage you to check out the Evil Dead movies. If you're a fan of horror, these are a staple in the horror genre, some of the best practical effects you'll ever see, and really cool history behind it of these guys going out and making a movie for practically no money and getting it sold by any means necessary sometimes, and doing a lot of the hard work by themselves, which applause to you, because I know how it's done. I know a little bit about filmmaking from going to school, but it's some of the hardest stuff you'll ever have to do, so kudos to Sam Raimi, and I'm really happy he got the opportunity to do a big budget movie like Spider-Man and continue with the other two movies too, and we'll have to talk about those to see if they hold up as well, because I'm very curious, because I love Sam Raimi and I hope you do too. So after the credits end, we start with some narration that's pretty cheesy, but it's whatever, because it honestly works for the character of Peter Parker.
If somebody told you I was just your average, ordinary guy, not a care in the world, somebody lied.
So we get this narration of him kind of telling us that he's a loser, doesn't have friends, really wants the girl of his dreams, but he wants to be somebody popular and he just isn't that. He's late for the bus, and he's getting bullied left and right by all these people. I mean, just look at this.
Don't even think about it.
You're so lame, Parker.
How embarrassing is that? Even the nerd girl doesn't want to sit with him. He's such a loser. That, my friends, is what early 2000s bullying was like, and probably even earlier than that. Really silly, goofy stuff that is really fun to see in these older movies, in my opinion. I just love looking back at it because, again, it feels like my childhood. It's all the movies I used to watch doing all this really goofy stuff. So the only person that comes to his defense is the girl of his dreams, Mary Jane Watson, played by Kirsten Dunst from the hit film Small Soldiers. Check it out. It's at your local library or video store. Check it out now. It's the best movie ever. It's probably not going to be that great when you watch it, but I love it. Anyway, Kirsten Dunst is fantastic. She plays a great Mary Jane Watson in this movie. Again, she probably should have been younger, but she gets the job done. And the chemistry between the two works at times, but a lot of times doesn't for me, but that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Now they're on the field trip. Peter's there. He's being creepy, staring at Mary Jane, and then he starts to do this.
The planetarium. Come on, people, let's stay together.
And you know it's not going to end well for my guy here, because she's not waving at him. It's very clear she's not waving at him, but he just doesn't see it. He really thinks it's his time to shine, and then it happens. And you can't help but cringe really hard. I mean, Cody Co's probably going to cover it on That's Cringe. It's so bad. So after that extremely cringy scene, we're introduced to two more characters, and that is Norman and Harry Osborne, played by Willem Dafoe and James Franco. The major standout here is Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is awesome. This is probably right up there next to At Eternity's Gate, where he plays Vincent Van Gogh. That's one of my favorite movies that he's ever been in, and this one is right up there next to it because he plays this role so well. You've seen the meme a bunch of times. Here it is again for good measure.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
And yeah, he's just awesome. He's very evil and still plays it in a very nice way. Like, he's so good at doing the creepy and nice guy. He's just really great at his job. And if you haven't seen Boondock Saints, At Eternity's Gate, literally anything Willem Dafoe's in, check it out, because it's probably going to be great. So we go into the field trip. We're learning more about spiders for some reason, and Peter's still getting bullied. Harry tries to stand up for him, and then the teacher gets involved, and that's where I notice it once again that they all look super old. Their own teacher looks younger than them, and they're supposed to be in high school. Like, it's not even college where that might make sense. This is high school, and yeah, I don't understand what's happening, but whoever casted this movie just did a really bad job, and I'm really sorry to say that. Alright guys, it's the time. The spider's coming. It gets the tight shots, the music gets really intense, he's taking the pictures of MJ, they have the awkward dialogue because they don't really have chemistry, and then it happens. It's almost shot like a horror movie, so good on you, Sam Raimi, to make it so dramatic. The teeth, or fangs, whatever spiders have, go into Peter. He knocks it off, and nothing happens, because it's a spider bite. Nothing's gonna happen right away, so we have to wait. And then more stuff happens, and then Peter gets home from the field trip, and then he starts having a trip of his own, because once he gets in that bedroom, it kind of looks like how I remember going home at 3 a.m. from a party and kind of just trying to mellow out. Everything's all spinny, crazy. He starts seeing crazy-ass stuff. I mean, actually, I take it back. It's never been like any trip I've ever seen. There's some jump scares in there, and honestly, just really creepy stuff. So again, kudos to Sam Raimi for being a horror director and making stuff that, honestly, I don't ever remember it being as creepy as it was just moments ago watching it. It's pretty wild stuff, especially to put in a superhero movie, so yeah, weird. By the way, that spider-bite looks gnarly. I mean, look at it. I'm gonna zoom in even further, just look at it. It's so gross. But we go back to Peter. We see that he's starting to feel better this morning. He tries to put on the glasses, and then I really wish that would happen to me because I'm blind. There's a contacts in, I can't see shit. So I want to get bit by that spider specifically just to have that good vision. So Peter's brand new, got that new body, feeling good, goes downstairs, does this.
Goodness me.
So Peter gets to school, he's at lunch, and then this happens.
Wow.
And fun fact, did you know Tobey Maguire was actually a clown before he was an actor? He did that all himself. So crazy, right? Well, and then we get to where Peter's playing with his webs at the lunch table, which you should never do. And he makes the mistake of hitting Flash in the back of the head like this. Now there's just some people you don't mess with, and Joe Manganiello was honestly pretty high up on that list for me. And he goes full werewolf on him, because True Blood. But, as Peter proves to all of us, it's not about the size of the fighter, because all of his fighting skills are automatically just there after he gets bit by the spider. He's the strongest man alive now, just crushing Joe's hand and just punches him across the room, which really doesn't make much sense, but we're just gonna go with it, because it's superheroes and it's fun. Peter takes off, he starts jumping on buildings, testing all his new powers, and yeah, it's really fun scenes. He's just jumping around doing the craziest stuff, and it kind of reminds me of that video game from PlayStation 2, where you just jump around in the city. I mean, that's basically what this scene is, so fun times to be had. I mean, if I was had these webs and everything, I can't say I wouldn't be doing the exact same stuff and yelling just like this. So after the more dramatic scenes we have to push through, we get to one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, and that is the wrestling scene. Now this is for a multitude of reasons. I mean, I'm a huge fan of wrestling, still watch it weekly, and this probably played a factor in me becoming more of a wrestling fan, because this is probably about the same time I started watching, and it has one of the most legendary wrestlers of all time, that being Macho Man Randy Savage. Now, he plays the character of Bonesaw, and you probably heard of Macho Man throughout pop culture. He's talked about a lot. One of the biggest wrestlers of all time. He was a big dude. He talked a lot of shit, beat a lot of people up, and he was just kind of like the character god when it came to wrestling in general. Just he was great on the mic, and he backed it all up too. Really fun dude, and it kind of boils over to his character of Bonesaw. It's one of my favorite characters in any of these movies. He's really fun, and Peter gets in there and kind of just shows him all his new powers, basically, and kind of gets to practice. And
you're going nowhere. I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime. What are you doing up there?
Staying away from you.
And again, Macho Man just plays this role of Bonesaw perfectly in this cage match, and it's just so fun. I mean, that's the main word of this movie. It's a blast to watch. I mean, this scene specifically holds up so well for me just because I love Macho Man. I didn't see a lot of his matches growing up because he was already older when I was younger, but just seeing him in this movie, it looked like he had a blast doing this role, and it's one of the best scenes in the entire movie because it also has an Evil Dead and Sam Raimi staple being Bruce Campbell as the fight promoter. Really fun character. He's on the mic. He gives Spider-Man his name.
A human spider, that's it? That's the best you got?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
The Amazing Spider-Man!
Which is a fun little added element, and yeah, you can't not smile throughout this entire scene, but once we get to the bad guy, the smiles go away. And the smiles go away because the scene we always dread whenever we watch anything about Spider-Man is the death of Uncle Ben.
What?
Now, after Uncle Ben dies, Peter actually wants to get revenge, which was kind of surprising in a way, being he's so good and everything, but he did really love Uncle Ben, so he wants to get that revenge, and indirectly, but he still does, Peter kills a man. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it, but yeah. He kind of just nudges the guy and backs him up into a window, and he goes right through it. And the cops see Peter, he covers his face, but somehow gets out of there just because he's so fast now, but it's pretty wild that the cops didn't catch him whatsoever, because they literally shined a light right on the guy, and he was dressed in a spider costume in a way, so I feel like he's easy to catch, but regardless. From that, we actually go into a scene with the Green Goblin, and we first kind of see how menacing and dangerous he really is, and it's full of CG, but it kind of has that early 2000s charm to it. Does it look good, especially in HD? No. But it's fun. And that's what matters here. It's pretty dated, and it's 20 years old, so the superhero movies from back then get a little bit of a pass when it comes to that in my eyes, but it almost gives it a charm, you know? Sam Raimi does a lot of practical effects still throughout this movie, but some of the CG stuff does look extremely cartoonish, but in a good way most of the time. So after that, we see Peter graduate from school, and then we get a little montage because he's inspired after Uncle Ben dies to kind of just be there for everyone else now that he couldn't be there for Uncle Ben, so he wants to help the community and defend against the crimes so stuff like this won't happen again. And we get a little montage of all the different people around town talking about how they think he's hot, how they're happy he helped, how they think he's a villain, just every little type of interview. We get a little glimpse of everything while we see him helping everybody too. And so after that montage, we're actually introduced to one of my favorite characters throughout the franchise, and that is J. Jonah Jameson, the head of the Daily Bugle, played by none other than J.K. Simmons. And if you're not really familiar with J.K. Simmons, he was in Juno, which he was fantastic in, as well as Whiplash. I can't remember if he won an Academy Award for that, but if he didn't, he really should have, because he's phenomenal. He's great in everything he does, but his role as J.K. Simmons, of course, but as J. Jonah Jameson, he is so perfect. I mean, he looks just like he was drawn in the comics. He acts just like the character talks in the comics, has that little, like, back and forth with his staff, but also has really just horrible ways of talking to people, and he's very mean, but also in a very funny way. Just stuff like this.
Mr. Jameson, there's a page 6 problem.
We have a page 1 problem. Shut up.
Like, it makes me laugh every time. I could watch clips of him all day, and he gets better throughout the franchise, but he's just so perfect. And if you're looking for a good laugh, most things that J.K. Simmons is in, he'll have you laughing at some point. Except for Whiplash, he might make you cry, because he's really, really intense. Alright, we go through a bunch more stuff, and then we get to the parade scene, which is kind of a big climatic moment of this movie, because we see the Green Goblin out in public for the first time. He just starts blowing shit up, blows up a balcony that literally his son is on, so, like, I don't know, like, the Green Goblin and Norman definitely must not have the same values when it comes to Harry, I guess, because the Green Goblin does not give a shit about Norman's son. But regardless, crazy stuff ensues. Peter sees all this happening because he's also at the parade, sees that MJ is in trouble because MJ was also on the balcony with Harry, but he just starts running down, and he starts doing this, like, how? How does no one see this? And, like, he goes on for 2 more movies, I should say. Doesn't get his identity revealed, but he just starts running down the sidewalk and ripping off his clothes, revealing that he is Spider-Man. Like, no one had an eye on him. No, not one person throughout that whole crowd was like, yo, what is it? Who is this guy? Not one person. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I know suspension of belief, but, like, I just imagine someone standing there being like, hey, who's that guy? What's that guy doing? He's not, like, just a cartoon guy taking pictures with the kids. He had that all underneath. What's going on? Like, someone had to have noticed. New Yorkers talk. And at the end of the day, obviously, Spider-Man saves the day. Green Goblin leaves while saying this because it's a superhero movie.
We'll meet again, Spider-Man!
And I mean, I wish superhero movies still did that because it's so funny, but Spider-Man saves Mary Jane at the last second, like it's known to happen, but then we go to another phenomenal Willem Dafoe scene where he's basically trying to convince Peter to
Join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together. What we could create.
Peter obviously says no to that because it's not what he's about, and Norman tells him that they're just going to fight for the rest of the time and that's what he wants, then someone's going to end up dead and stuff like that, and Willem Dafoe just plays that evil, menacing goblin so well. So I ate this scene up, and then we move straight into Peter being creepy once again. I mean, he shows up outside of Mary Jane's audition when she's perfectly just getting out at the same time. And it's just like, dude, if you're really going after this girl, stop being so damn creepy. Just showing up at places in public ain't it, bro. But it works out because they go away from each other. She gets harassed by a bunch of different dudes. And of course, who's there to save the day but Spider-Man? And then we get our iconic scene of him hanging upside down, her giving him a kiss, and honestly, people love it, but again, they just don't have chemistry in my eyes, so it all just turns out really awkward. But if people like it, then hey, more power to you, because I just don't think they really like each other, it seems like Kirsten just doesn't seem that into it. Toby, on the other hand, I think is really into it, but I don't know, for some reason they just don't seem to like each other. I don't know, if it's just me, I wish someone liked me. So we go through a bunch more scenes, but we finally get to the scene that probably matters the most throughout this movie, and it is the part where we see that Norman now knows that Peter is Spider-Man. He sees the cut on his arm. Peter gives him a bullshit excuse about some bike carrier cut him or something by accident. Norman's not buying that. He finally puts two and two together, takes off from the dinner, says some really mean stuff, and yeah, he comes back, goes after Peter's Aunt May. She hurts her, or he hurts her, and then Peter exacts his revenge. Now, as Peter realizes all of this, Harry also sees that MJ and Peter are more of a thing now. He doesn't really know why, but he's upset because Peter's moving in on his lady and he don't like it. So, we'll see just what happens with him later. Alright everybody, it's the moment we've been waiting for. The final climax of the movie. Goblin knows who Peter is, Peter knows who Goblin is, and now Goblin has kidnapped MJ. He's kidnapped this bus car thing full of kids, and he's making Peter make the ultimate decision of choosing between MJ and these children, and obviously Spider-Man, being as powerful as he is, saves both of them, but he also doesn't get to save himself fully because Goblin comes back, takes him back to his little abandoned area, and they fight it out. A lot of stuff said, a lot of crazy stuff. It looks like Spider-Man might lose this fight, but then the kill shot comes at Green Goblin's own hand.
Godspeed, Spider-Man. Oh.
Or glider, I should say. And then he gives this final words that is really just chilling for a father to say to this kid's friend.
Don't tell Harry.
Because he knows how bad he was doing and he just doesn't want his son to know. It's a real great ending to this character because he's just so complicated, having those two sides, the good and evil, fighting back and forth, and almost like a Jekyll and Hyde type situation, like a Smeagol situation. It's all really interesting, and Willem Dafoe just plays it off so well. And then of course we go to the funeral scene afterwards, and Harry is basically saying straight up he wants his revenge on Spider-Man. He wants to avenge his father's death, and he will do it by any means necessary. And it's pretty intense because he's literally saying it to his father's kind of murderer in a way. So it's pretty crazy, but I don't know if James Franco did that great in this scene. He did get better throughout his career at acting, but he did not seem very intense at that moment, even though the dialogue definitely demanded it. But anyway, that's Spider-Man 2002, almost 20 years ago. Does it hold up in my eyes? Absolutely. I had so much fun watching this movie. Is it dated? Absolutely. But does it feel like a fun early 2000s comic book movie? Through and through. It's so much fun, it's goofy, it's silly. And if you're in for a fun time and you're a big fan of Spider-Man, this checks all the boxes and more.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Sam Raimi did a fantastic job. I'm really looking forward to this new Spider-Man movie. They've already included Doc Ock in some of the trailers. I'm really hoping Green Goblin shows up in some aspect. People have saying his voice showed up in the trailer, which I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I hope he shows up regardless. Love this movie, and if you're a fan at all, or if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. I think it's worth your time. If you're at all a superhero comic book fan, this movie is pretty fantastic. So yeah, that's it for today, everybody. Please like this video and help me get this seen by the masses, because I worked really hard on it. It took a long time, but comment your thoughts on the movie, my video, what your favorite superhero movie is, or like your favorite moment from the Sam Raimi trilogy. Love to talk with you about it, and yeah, follow me on my Letterboxd and any other social medias. All the links are down there in the description. And thanks so much for watching.